Hartenberg estate and my mask is in my mouth. Today we're just going to meet our assistant winemaker Elouise inside of the cellar just to have a little chat about our Chardonnays.
Hi, I'm Elouise Kotze. I'm the assistant winemaker at Hartenberg Wine Estate, and I'm looking forward to talk to Andrea about our Chardonnays today.
It's lovely to have you with me, Elouise. So firstly I want to talk about how we've got a few different types of Chardonnays. I want to know just what the big differences are between them.
Well, we've got quite a few, as you mentioned. Firstly, the Doorkeeper unwooded Chardonnay, which is a very new member to the Hartenberg family of Chardonnays. It's, like the name says, completely unwooded, fermented in stainless steel tank, and the aim of that is to be a very good conductor of terroir for our Chardonnays, with no influence of oak, only the natural terroir that shines through, lots of those citrus, lemon, green apple notes coming through on that wine especially, and definitely something that is meant to open up and drink after long days of work. Then the other two Chardonnays, our estate Chardonnay, currently the 2018 vintage, is a little bit more oaked. It's still lightly wooded. The focus on that is also to still focus on the more greener citrusy notes. We definitely are not looking for a tropical and riper style of Chardonnay at Hartenberg. We tend to focus more on the linear style, good acidity, freshness, and light oak, very good balance of fruit, acid and oak on the wine. And then the Eleanor Chardonnay is a very small parcel of grapes. We only make a couple of barrels of it. A little bit more oak used on the Eleanor than the estate Chardonnay, but definitely you can taste those delicate brioche and creamy lanolin, bit of that creamy finish on the palate, but very well balanced between the fruit on the nose and then that little bit of a delicate creaminess left on the palate afterwards from that oak.
I feel like we should have opened a bottle of that one instead.
Yes.
So you mentioned oaking Chardonnay. What exactly happens during that process and what effect does that have on the wine?
Well, during the oaking process or the fermentation, we do prefer to do our fermentation of the Chardonnay inside the barrel. It's definitely the best way to have that balance between the fruit and the oak. It lies in the barrel for about 10 to 11 months, and during that period it first ferments, and even when it's dry we still keep it on its fine lees. And that's often where a lot of that creamy flavor is coming through. We don't do any malolactic fermentation at Hartenberg. We focus on that citrus, fresher style, where with the malolactic you tend to get a bit more of that batonnage, fuller, heavier style of wine.
Lactic means milk, so
exactly.
Milk is butter.
Precisely, the conversion of malic acid to lactic acid, but we prefer not to do that here. Sticking to the more natural flavors, and during the fermentation and especially the maturation process of Chardonnay in the barrel, the most important thing is actually the micro oxygenation process that happens. And during that, there's tiny little pores in the French oak barrels that we use. As you can see, it's hard to see, but you can definitely, it's just the right size not to leak out, but to have that slight light oxygenation process, and that is actually what is creating that secondary fermentation characters. We always talk about the marriage between the fruit, the oak, and we give our harsher natural tannins. Even in a white there's always a little bit of a tannin present. Give that to the barrel, and the barrel in return gives us those secondary fermentation, the brioche and the vanilla toastiness. It gives us that back.
So now let's say I've bought a few cases of Eleanor or the estate Chardonnay. How long can I age it, and what can I expect the wine to taste like after some aging?
Well, definitely Chardonnay is one of the varieties that you can trust on leaving this a little bit longer in the bottle before you drink it. Of course, we do age it a little bit before it's released, so it is perfectly ready to drink at the moment. But at the moment, at this vintage, at this time, 2021, you can get much more of that initial greener fruit notes, citrus fruit notes, where with time, a lot of those fruit notes start to get a little bit more subtle, and a lot of the secondary fermentation character starts to come through a lot more. So you'll get a bit more of that vanilla, the texture on the palate, the acid will start to get a little bit lighter with age. So a lot of people prefer to drink older Chardonnays because it's much more melded and creamy and rich on the palate, instead of that really racy acidity that you initially get in a young wine. And just to mention, the individual wines, unwooded Chardonnay, I would recommend to drink that within the next 2 to 3 years. But the estate Chardonnay, we recommend about 5 to 6 years from vintage of aging. And then the Eleanor Chardonnay, 7 to 8 years. But I've seen some of our Hartenberg Chardonnay lying in the library stock that is 2004, 2005 vintage at the moment, and it can still be drunk. So it is definitely something that you can enjoy within the next few years.
So you mentioned our underground cellar and our library. Now, of course, I don't necessarily have one at home, but how can I ensure that my Chardonnay ages well at home? What can I do in terms of that?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Not all of us have underground cellars in the back of our yards.
Darn.
That's what makes it so precious that we're able to have this space to be able to age this wine for you before you even get it on the shelves. But when you do have it at home, in South Africa, I mean, we have a bit more of a warmer climate than you'll find in Europe, where often they say store at room temperature. But for us, we need to do the best we can do. And at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about keeping your wine constantly at 14 degrees, but rather keeping it at a constant temperature. So perhaps for you, it's possible to keep it at 17 or 18 degrees. But the most important thing is to stay away from any fluctuations in temperature, because that is often what makes the corks push out, what makes the oxidation process go much faster.
So I shouldn't take my Chardonnay out, put it in the fridge, and then put it back on the rack?
Preferably not. Yes, if you're putting it in the fridge or put it in a wine cooler, keep it there for a constant temperature and before you're drinking it. But like you say, we don't take meat out, put it outside and put it back in the freezer. The same with our wines. We need to keep it preferably in a dark area. Wine doesn't like a lot of movement. So often people ask, should I turn my bottles around when I'm at my house? We never do that to our wines.
Not on top of your fridge.
Exactly. Not on top of the fridge, not on top of the oven in your kitchen. Keep it inside the coolest, darkest space you have available in your house.
Well, I mean, this is drinking so excellently at the moment. I'm not sure I will be able to age it for much longer than now.
Exactly.